Hey, Tyler.
What's up?
They're here.
No. They're here?
They're here.
Let's go, dude. Thanks. Oh, that's good. Todd, they're here! Yeah, oh, dude, that's all right. We'll do it later. That's nice. I'm working on one myself. Yeah, we'll talk later. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. Tasty. 35 cal air bolts. All right, guys, if you couldn't tell by my excitement, the 35 cal air bolts are here. They are ready to go, and we obviously have a smattering of 35 cal rifles to test them in, so we are gonna break it down across the board. We are gonna shoot just about everything we can get our hands on and see how these bolts perform in all of our 35 cal offerings. So real quick before we talk about some of the guns we're going to shoot it in, let's check out the bolt itself. Now, the 35 cal air bolt is obviously, you can tell, a little bit different from the 50 caliber bolt, but does share many of the same features. We do still have the knock at the back with that O-ring on there, and of course, when we go ahead and load it, we're going to want to keep it greased up with some silicone grease or some silicone lube. Either one's going to be fine. It'll just keep that O-ring nice and preserved for the life of the bolt there. So moving up, this is where we get into the departure from the 50 caliber bolt. This is it's almost a Velcro-like stabilizer here at the back, and really that's just helping keep the bolt stable in flight. We don't actually need it to create any spin or anything like that. That is all happening, being imparted from the barrel on the knock itself. This is just creating some extra drag there in the barrel and obviously in flight as well. You guys will also notice that we have this yellow band on there. That's how you know it's the 35 cal. So the yellow colored ones are going to be the 35s. The box will also have the yellow label on it to let you know that you're buying 35 cal bolts, and again, they come in 6 packs just like the 50s. Just like the 50, we have a full carbon layup shaft here on our bolts, and it's a 23-inch overall length that does come into play for the barrel length of the rifle. You're going to want at least a 21, 22-inch barrel somewhere in there. If it's shorter than that, like some of the Avonex guns, you're simply not going to get good enough accuracy out of it. But overall, carbon fiber, 23 inches, that's what you guys need to know. And we still have that nice aluminum insert at the front that's going to help you know when it's seated. We do have a 100 grain field point here, and obviously can be replaced with any standard broadhead, although the fit on some of these rifles is going to be a little tricky with some of the shrouded guns, but we'll talk about that here later. Overall weight on this guy's 375 grains with that 100 grain tip. So obviously a pretty stout, heavy bolt that is going to hopefully give us a lot of good energy downrange. Now, in terms of loading, I wanted to actually show you guys how to load these because the 35s are a little bit different than the 50s in that we have some rifles that actually do have shrouded barrels that makes loading these a little bit tricky, but I'll show you what the easy ones are. Now, moving to the RECLUSE here, we have our single tube model here. Obviously also comes in a double tube variant, and you'll notice that we do have a nice quiver mount that actually will allow you to mount a bipod on this guy as well. Holds up to, I think, 6 or 8 arrows on this quiver. Really nice unit, obviously, and slaps right on there. Doesn't add too much weight, so you have them readily available, easy to access. Pretty cool little unit. And that's going to fit on the single and the double tube versions as well. But showing you guys how to load this, so we're just going to take one of our bolts. Very simple to do. You're just going to insert it. This is just like the 50 here. We're just going to insert and push. All right, it's really, really easy. Now, there is the last little bit that's kind of tricky, and obviously for those of you that are going to be putting broadheads on this, we wanted to make something that would make broadhead installation as well as insertion into the guns easy and safe. That's the big one. So Air Venturi created a broadhead wrench that's actually going to allow you not only to properly install a broadhead into the insert, but also insert the bolt into the gun without getting your fingers in the way. So it works like this. You simply place it over the top of the bolt, go ahead and push it on down, and then one little tip, I like to take the back end of the wrench, press it on. Now you can do this whether you have a broadhead or the traditional field point like we have here, and just push it down till it's fully seated. You're all good to go. So that's a relatively easy installation on the RECLUSE guns. They're going to be super easy to load, and any unshrouded gun with, a 23, 24-inch barrel is going to be no problem. At least, again, 21, 22 inches is what you're going to want to be shooting for, at least on that barrel length, but super easy to load the unshrouded guns. Moving over to a shrouded gun like this Benjamin Bulldog here, I'm actually really excited to shoot these bolts out of this Bulldog because obviously Benjamin has the Pioneer Air Bow, and I am very curious to see how this compares with the bolts compared to the velocities and the energies that the Air Bow puts out. And obviously being able to shoot a couple different types of ammunition is really cool in my opinion. So we're gonna go ahead and load it up the same way. You're just gonna go ahead and insert the nock in. Now you do have to kind of feel, so I would recommend not just going ahead and shoving that in there. You're gonna go ahead and slowly insert, and you'll feel when it catches the barrel. And then we're just gonna push it down nice and slow there. Now you can use the broadhead wrench, but here's the kicker. Once you get past the shroud opening, you're gonna have no way to continue to seat it. So what I would tell you to do, you can either get a dowel rod, you can even like use a hollow pen or something like that. I just like to take the other end of the air bolt, you take that knock end, and you just go ahead and push it until it seats flush, and you are good to go, ready to shoot. So pretty easy to do, but again, you're probably gonna wanna keep something on you, if not another air bolt, to make loading into those shrouded guns a little bit easier. I am very sad to report that this is not gonna be a really good option for the Air Force Texan. Now, obviously, this was the one I was hoping that it was going to shoot out of the best. Reason being, you have a 23-inch bolt and a 34-inch barrel. So we have a whole bunch of dead space there, and the valve requires that back pressure from a pellet or a slug being loaded right there to keep the valve open long enough to actually push that projectile out with any serious force. So this air bolt, when you can get this to actually fire out of it, is only producing about 100 to 150 feet per second. It's not even making it to a target at 30 yards. So sadly, for those of you with a full-length Air Force Texan in 357, it's not going to be a good option for that 35 cal air bolt. All right, guys, now that we've gotten the specifics out of the way, let's head out to the range, get you some velocity numbers, some power figures, and see how accurate these bad boys are. Let's head out. All right, guys, so let's wrap this up looking at all of the guns in terms of how they shot as a whole. You're looking at the most energies out of your single tube recluse and your dual tube recluse, obviously with the single tube being a little bit more powerful due to the fact that it has a heavier hammer, but it doesn't have as much air capacity, so you're not gonna get as many good shots per fill out of it. That said, at over 215 foot-pounds of energy, it is slinging these arrows at some real speed with some real power, and under an inch at 30 yards for 3 shots, you're not getting a whole heck of a lot better than that. So that's gonna take the top spot. Obviously, you got the dual tank recluse after that with similar accuracy, just not as much energy. The surprise one for me was the HATSAN, you know, coming in at about 140 foot-pounds almost, and very accurate, 3/4 of an inch at 30 yards, but the gun's super bulky and quite frankly, not one I would take into the field. That's where that Benjamin Bulldog comes in. I like, from a carrying perspective, that gun is a lot more friendly. You know, with the shrouded barrel, it's not quite as loud and still plenty of smackdown with 121 foot-pounds. And for those of you guys that are just looking to, you know, have a little bit more fun or even produce, you know, similar to compound bow energies out of your gun, the Atamans sling them pretty well in terms of accuracy at just over an inch. Right around 300 feet per second means about 70 foot-pounds, which you can expect out of a whole lot of compound bows and certainly even some crossbows out there. So definitely really impressive numbers out of the Air Bolt across the board on a lot of these guns, and some really big energies out of those recluses. All right, guys, so to wrap things up today, I think you guys could probably, at least at this point, see why I was so excited about these 35 cal air bolts. They are so versatile, a ton of guns you could shoot them in. You're talking about like 70 foot-pounds in the Ataman, all the way up to 230 plus foot-pounds out of the Recluse. So very, very impressive numbers overall, and obviously it's got the accuracy to boot. Everything pretty much shot at an inch or so for 3 shots at 30 yards. So this is gonna get it done not only in the field, but if you wanna shoot targets with it, whatever you wanna do, these 35 cal air bolts are gonna give you the option to do that. One thing I will mention though, these little knocks on the back, we damaged a ton of them because these things are so accurate, they just keep shooting right into one another. So definitely keep that in mind. I wouldn't shoot 2 at the same target if you can help it. Thanks for joining us today for the video, guys, on these 35 caliber air bolts. Check them out on pyramydair.com when you guys get a chance. For the Insider, I'm Tyler Patner. We'll see you guys at the next one. Thanks for tuning into today's video, guys, checking out these badass 35 cal air bolts. Definitely make sure you check out this brand new quiver setup and the mount setup for the Recluse and the Dragon Claw on Pyramyd Air when you guys get a second. In the meantime, though, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel to see more awesome videos. Check out our 50 cal air bolt video, and don't forget to comment down below. We want to know what you guys think.